Today I have the privilege of visiting with someone who was actually born into a Grace family and has been here now for almost 20 years. I'm with Emma Williams. Emma, I know you have lots of stories that you've heard about when you were very young, coming to work with your mom in the pack and play, but what is your earliest memory of being at Grace?
My earliest memories are from when I went to preschool here, and I have a lot of bits and pieces that I'm not quite sure which memory comes first, but the one I always tell was during release in preschool. So I would go get dropped off and my mom would be working in the Grace Center, and when she was done she would come pick me up. So in the meantime I was waiting with all the other kids during release, and I had to use the restroom. And for some reason that day I decided that I was a big girl and I could go use the big girl restroom, which was the one outside of the preschool, across from the parlor. So I did ask, but I asked to use the restroom and I went out through the double doors of the preschool, not realizing that they would lock behind me. So I went and I used the restroom and I came back and I went to go open those double doors and they wouldn't open. You know, it was little me. I looked through the crack in between the two double doors and I could see all the way down the hallway of the Grace Center, and I could see my mom and my teachers all looking for me, going in and out of hallways, and I'm banging on the door, you know, trying to get their attention, saying, I'm over here, I'm outside. And I don't know how long it took. It felt like an eternity, but they finally found me. And you know, my mom was just confused because I told them, I said, well, I wanted to be a big girl, use the big girl restroom. And she said, why didn't you you could have walked down the hallway to the Grace Center. And, you know, Miss Sheila, my godmother, was working there still at the time. So you could have gotten her, you could have gotten anybody else. Everyone in this church knows you, could have helped you. But, you know, for some reason it just didn't click. But that's one of the stories that I remember vividly. And I always tell that just because it's, you know, little me.
Perfect.
The other one I remember is the first time I got stung by a bee was on the preschool playground. I didn't really realize what it was. It had landed on my finger. I was sliding down the slide. I got to the bottom of the slide. It landed on my finger. And I was thinking to myself, oh, it's just a friend. I have a friend today. And then it stung me. And it ended up being a good day because the preschool was out of ice packs that day for whatever reason, and all they had were popsicles in the freezer.
Too funny.
So I would hold it on my bee sting, and once it melted, I got to eat it. And I went through probably 3 of them, maybe 4. Those are the 2 that I pretty much remember vividly from preschool. And, you know, from there on out, it was, you know, going into youth group and growing up, so.
Do you remember how many of the young people you were in youth group with were also children here?
It was a good majority of the people that I ended up in youth group with. It was, you know, Katie Cook, Ben Boyd, David Gilles, Connor Pendarvis.
Wow.
And, you know, I met them so young, I don't have a memory of meeting them. They just were kind of always there throughout all the memories that I have of Grace.
Which is good since you don't live in the county.
Yes, and I went to school in Forsyth County Schools, so these are all people that I would have probably never met if it weren't for Grace. So, you know, it's these people from different walks of life that have different experiences than me that, you know, I got to grow up with and experience life and youth with them.
So then what was it like to go on, to have your pilgrimage year?
Pilgrimage was great, and you know, when I think back to that experience, obviously the trip was kind of the icing on the cake, and it was when all the pieces fell into place, but I think too of the year leading up to it and all the preparation that we had to do to get there, the fundraising that we did, and the, you know, teaching that we had. There's happening that we went to at Camp Michael. And I think of all the stuff that, you know, we did, it was a drive to get there. And I think I learned a lot about myself in those experiences and about my community. And I think one of the most rewarding parts was being able to learn how I fit into everything as I'm going through my journey in my faith.
Absolutely. So that was just before your senior year of high school, and now here you are just before your senior year in college and about to go off to grad school. I'm curious as to your feelings about grace now as a young adult. Is it something that's in your rearview mirror as part of your childhood, or do you anticipate that as an adult you would choose to be an adult parishioner here? Tell me what you're thinking.
I think as I've thought about it a lot, I've had a lot of full circle moments. You know, going on pilgrimage 4 years ago, it was a time where I didn't really know where I would be in the next 4 years. I didn't know who I would be, what kind of things would be going on in my life. And now 4 years later, you know, I'm graduating, I'm figuring out where I'm going to grad school. I don't know where I'll be in the next 4 years. But, you know, looking back on growing up at Grace and being there, I've gone through so many life transitions. I've, you know, changed schools, I've graduated, you know, I've met new people, I've had people that have left my life for one reason or another. And throughout all of that, Grace has been one of the few things that have stayed consistent. So, you know, no matter who I am or where I am, it's a place that I know that I can come back to, and there's still going to be people there that have influenced my life and growing up, and that can continue to help me.
That makes this such an ideal story to be part of this series of Grace looking toward its second 100 years, because the story that you're telling, I imagine, could be told by, I would hope, hundreds of people down through the decades who never knew a time when they didn't know grace. So whatever choices you make in the future, wherever the next 4 years land you, you have already contributed richly to the second 100 years of grace, and I thank you.